its data and stuff like that. Then become a member. That's probably your best bet. It's more expensive, obviously, but it's, we've been around since 2003, so it's not like we've been around, and we have a very popular and strong membership base. It's worldwide. All right, guys, so we're still looking at the eclipse taking place. I'll try to get an update shortly from our feed. Paul, is there any questions?
Yeah, I was just going to try and butt in there to answer a few of the questions. One person was asking they want to see an image of the sun without a filter. Well, that's simply not possible. The sun's so bright that no camera can take a short enough exposure without being filtered to cut a lot of that light out. Otherwise, it would just come out as a total white mess. The only time you can really do that is during a total eclipse, when most of that sunlight, of course, is blocked off by the sun. Somebody else has been asking if you want to become a SLU member, what's the best device to use? Anything that supports Flash, so a browser that runs Flash, and that's when SLU members view their images live, because SLU takes these live images and presents them to you. But if you want to go to bed, it also saves it to your library and stuff like that. So Internet Explorer, Mozilla, any browser that supports Flash, you'll be fine with that. And I'll catch up with some of the other questions. There may be problems with the iTunes store at the moment, but the SLU app is in the iTunes store. It's there to download. Demand might be phasing iTunes a little bit. So.
I have a question for you, Paul, that somebody asked me. I'll pass it on to you. The question is this. If the sun is a star, why can't we see it at night?
Because it's on the other side of the world. So if we had a see-through Earth, we'd be able to see it. But very good, Bob. You like to really catch me out with those ones, don't you?
That's an actual question. I'm not making...
I think I mispronounced. Did I say Carnes? It's Cans, right? Someone emailed me.
Cans,
correct.
yeah.
I'm being called out.
Most of us have stopped trying to correct your pronunciation. we gave up on that as a lost cause years ago.
Yeah, don't even attempt it anymore. I've given up on those astronomy terms. Anyway, guys, so we're looking at, I just got an update. The clouds are thinning out at the Northwest Territory feed. He expects to have some more feeds coming in shortly. So we're heading into, where are we at, Paul, in the whole progress here with the...
We are about 10 or 15 minutes away for the main Northwest Territory feed. Actually, no, that's going to be a little bit later. That is going to be at 10 to the hour. So we've got about 20 minutes before we reach mid-eclipse. That one. Bob, there are a couple of questions that did just come in for you. One of which we're noticing on that one feed that there seems to be some darkening on the kind of the area of the sun to the right, about the 4 o'clock position, and somebody was wondering whether or not there was a name for that. That's pretty difficult to tell because a lot of that might have to do with exposure and then local conditions.
It does. There is something that the sun suffers called limb darkening, and when you look along the edges of the sun, it's not as bright as the rest of the sun. Jupiter shows that very prominently as well. And the moon, very famously, does not. The Greeks noticed this in ancient times, that when you look at a full moon, it does not look three-dimensional. That is, the middle doesn't look brighter than the edges. Rather, it looks like a disk that's like a dish that's painted onto the sky. There's no dimensionality. Why should the middle of the moon be the same brightness as the edges if the sun is illuminating the middle from straight down, but illuminating the edges at an angle? Should that dilute the sunlight and make the edges of the sun look a lot, edges of the moon look a lot dimmer? Yet it doesn't. In fact, this lack of limb darkening on the moon was a major mystery, and answers to it have gone back and forth among scientists. Now it's believed to be just the nature of the way the particles on the moon, the semi-translucent silicon, because most of the moon is silicon dioxide, in other words, a sandy type material that reflects light back to us like the movie screen does. shadows. Another alternate hypothesis is that it's shadow darkening, shadow hiding, that the particles on the moon's surface cast shadows and therefore hide bits of the moon. On the sun, the limb darkening is simply because the angle that we're gazing at is not intercepting the rays as directly as when we look straight down. But that's not what's happening here. This is some artifact of the filter.
We've got another couple of questions, one of which is about how often this type of eclipse occurs. And I'm actually screen sharing in the app because maybe, Bob, you can also talk about the way that a solar eclipse is always paired with a lunar eclipse. And what I'm sharing in at the moment is an image which I took through the iPad app of the partial lunar eclipse that we saw just 2 weeks ago. So how often do these solar eclipses occur, and why are they associated always with a lunar eclipse?
Hey, Bob, can I jump in really quick before you answer that? I just want to let people know that you got another awesome shot rolling in from Northwest Territory. As you can see, the moon starting to cover up the sun. Sorry, go ahead, Bob.
Yes, it's really beautiful. What was summarize the question again? I lost track.
It's about how often do solar eclipses occur?
Oh yes, how often?
And why do they occur in association with lunar eclipses?
Well, because the moon's orbit is tilted about 5 degrees from the Earth-Sun plane, when the moon is new or full, it has to be full for us to see a lunar eclipse because Earth's shadow has to fall on it, and it has to be new in order to create a solar eclipse because it has to block the sun. But for either of those to happen, there has to be in a precise alignment in all 3 dimensions of the sun and the moon and the Earth. And yet the moon's orbit has this 5-degree tilt, which means that many months, most months, as at new moon, the moon will scoot from one side of the sun to the other, but pass above it or below it. It can pass 10 moon widths above it or below it. So usually it misses the sun, and on the other side of the orbit it misses the Earth's shadow. But if what's called nodes, the exact alignment point, the crossing points where the moon is above the plane of the solar system, the Earth-Sun plane called the ecliptic, to going below, or the other way around, it's passing from below to above. If that alignment is perfect, then it'll produce one type of eclipse. And that alignment doesn't go away right away. A fortnight later, the alignment will usually be good enough so that we'll then have, once we've had a solar eclipse, we'll usually have a lunar eclipse a fortnight later because the alignment still is rather good. What won't happen is if you get such a good alignment that you have a total solar eclipse, you will not have a good enough alignment to have a total lunar eclipse, or the other way around. In other words, you'll get a partial eclipse that will frame, in some cases, frame on either side of the total eclipse. So you can have up to 3 eclipses happening at once, each 2 weeks apart. But the central eclipse can be total. The ones on the edges will be partial, simply because the alignment is no longer perfect enough for the nodes to be exactly aligned. Now, 6 months later, as we go around the sun, the other node will then be aligned, and then we'll have another eclipse season. So every year brings us 2 eclipse seasons, and those seasons precessed by about 11 days per year. So that's the mechanics behind the eclipse sequence.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Somebody's just saying that they just spotted another prominence just on about the 9 o'clock position. No, sorry, it's on the 7 o'clock position of this live image that we've got coming in. Bob, isn't this phase of an eclipse often referred to as the bullhorns?
Well, it certainly looks that way. The thing about the crescent, crescents, of course, are creepy kind of things. They're spooky things. On Earth, we don't really see crescents. I mean, they're crescent-like objects like bananas and croissants and I guess some beaches, but we live in a minimally crescented neighborhood. As we look toward the sun, there's only 3 objects that can grow crescent shapes. That's Mercury and Venus and the moon. This is a kind of an artificial crescent because the moon covering up the sun partially like this is creating a blockage that creates an artificial crescent. If you lived on Venus or Mercury, there would be, if you lived on Mercury, there'd be no crescents in the universe. You'd never see a crescent in anything. If you lived on Venus and had a telescope, you could see one possible crescent alone, and that is that of Mercury. But here on Earth, we get both the crescent moon and the crescent phases of eclipses.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Bob. Hey, Matt, are you looking like your weather's still pretty bad, huh? No go for you?
That's correct. In fact, I'm going to sign off, guys. The weather here is just getting worse.
Okay, well, buddy, I appreciate you trying to come on and give us some live images out of Arizona. That's Matt Francis from Prescott Observatory. Matt, we'll definitely set up a solar feed with you sometime in the near future on a live show. That would be great.
That'd be great.
I thought it didn't rain in Arizona.
Exactly.
That's what I thought.
That's why Matt moved there. Yeah.
Exactly.
It only rains when we try to do a live feed.
It seems
Well,
like
it is very commonly known throughout the amateur astronomy community that as soon as somebody buys a new telescope, you're guaranteed a fall right into the clouds. Matt actually if you build a whole observatory, then I think that probably goes into months and potentially years. So, no, good luck with that one, Matt. Hopefully the summer will bring you some better weather down there.
I think so. All right, thanks, guys. It was great to see you.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Matt. So, guys, I just want to give you a quick update. We're looking at a live feed out of Northwest Territory in Australia. I want to do a special shout-out to Matt Tree over at Sirius Optics, who's helped us with obtaining this feed, who's being manned by Gerard Lazarus. He's in the Northwest Territory, so he's out there in a pretty remote place. So as you can see, he's providing us with some fantastic imagery coming in. I love this coloring, by the way. It looks really cool. And it's we just really want to say thanks, Gerard. We really appreciate all your help. And we'll definitely, what Gerard we're going to do is we're going to make a donation of the SLU books to his school of choice. So that's part of the help that he's providing SLU. And I just want to say, Gerard, thank you. We're going to also try to get him on the show a little bit later as we get through towards the partial phase here and out. It's getting closer and closer. It looks like, Paul, towards.
Yep, we're about 10 minutes away from mid-eclipse from this location. The image I just zoomed in on is the one on the home page, and you can see just at the 3 o'clock position this time, we've got what look like 3 enormous prominences, one of which, the one slightly below it, is quite subtle, but if you see that, it actually looks like it's detached from the sun, so it's actually a flare. It's not being pulled back by the magnetism, the magnetic fields of the sun, and it's actually managed to escape, presumably, Bob, at some horrendously high velocity.
Yes, it's really fantastic to see an eclipse with this kind of prominence activity occurring. Is very unusual. Of course, this is the year of solar max, and so we have more activity on the sun than there has been in years past. But to actually see it firsthand is just beautiful.
Well, a lot of this as well, Bob, has to be down to the guys who are giving us these feeds at the moment, because you can see that the sun itself is almost overexposed, and I think he's probably doing that quite deliberately so that we can see these prominences and the fainter features out on the edges. So it looks absolutely brilliant. And if you take a look on the right-hand side, you can just see there's one tiny bit of brightness that's kind of breaking through probably a valley in the moon, which is where, of course, we see quite a lot with Bailey's beads on total solar eclipses. But this is an absolutely stunning image that we've got here. It looks absolutely beautiful. So the guy's doing a fantastic job. Bob, there was a question. I better feed it to you when I remember it. We can deal with it whenever. Do solar eclipses change the weather here on Earth?
It's very interesting. A whole chapter in the sun's heartbeat. I mean, I have to mention that because the book just came out, and it's all about the sun, about fantastic things that most people don't know about the sun. But the reason
Uh-oh. Crush. Yeah. Okay. Let's see now. Okay. Goes an ad.
There, but you can also book missions within the app itself to command one of our space cameras. So it's a really neat product. It just came out about 3 weeks ago, and you should check it out as well. And please, you guys, by booking missions on our iPad or by becoming a member of SLU, you're helping support us in this free program that we provide to the world. So please, for today, if you got the iPad app, book a mission to the sun, and you're going to get one of these fantastic images of the annular solar eclipse. In fact, Paul, I think this one would be one of my candidates that we would be a part of.
I agree.
So you get this, and it's then you can come back a year later in the app and show someone, hey, I remember doing that on SLU, or you can book a mission to Saturn or what have you. There is a demo on the homepage of SLU.com. If you go there, Paul's actually got one right here. This was a show that we did on the sun not too long ago with Matt, actually, and that was one of the images that people could get on that event. But if you do book missions to other objects, you are commanding one of our space cameras, like Saturn or Neptune, or maybe a Whirlpool galaxy, what have you. So please consider that as well. Bob, I really appreciate you coming on. We've got some time left in the show. We're going to keep broadcasting for at least a couple hours here today to give you guys a full look at this eclipse as it occurs. Hopefully the weather continues to work for us on this main feed. As we're looking at this, I know that particular feed was having some cloud issues as well, but it seems like he's still able to image effectively, so hopefully we can continue with the feed. We're in about an hour and 15 minutes in this broadcast, so believe it or not, guys, I have this down for at least another hour, so I hope you guys have enough stories to fill the time. Paul, is there any questions that are coming in on the conversation section?
Got one from Andy Perry, and he is asking what the best way of viewing an eclipse visually is. And the first thing, obviously, we point out is always the important one. Anything to do with the sun, never look at it directly. Certainly never look at it through binoculars or telescopes directly. They have to be properly filtered. The filters have to be in absolutely perfect order. Even a small pinhole will do damage. It will let through enough light to damage your eye. So really the best ways are, you can buy eclipse glasses and stuff like that, but even those have some danger because they, once again, they're only made of plastic mylar usually and can easily be damaged. Usually looking at some kind of projection, so you can project an image through a telescope onto a piece of card. You can have a pinhole camera, or you can just use, somebody else was asking, what's the best kind of telescope to image an eclipse? And usually nowadays it's just a DSLR camera with a medium zoom lens on it, or you can get adapters to stick your DSLR camera, your digital camera, on the back of a small telescope. So a small refractor probably only about 60 or 75 mil or something like that in diameter, will give you some pretty good high-resolution views of an eclipse like this. If you do that, you've got to buy one kind of filter or another. And when it comes to filtering the sun, there are several options. You can buy a white light filter, which basically just cuts down the amount of visible light which is reaching your eye or the camera. Or you can buy what are called narrowband filters, and they for the sun are commonly hydrogen alpha filters or calcium filters, and what they do is they filter out all of the sunlight except a very narrow bandwidth, and that's how you start seeing some of the really fine detail on the sun. So Matt's images that we were looking at earlier, those are hydrogen alpha filter images. So that's the kind of equipment, but please, everybody, just don't ever be tempted to look at the sun through a telescope which is unfiltered.
So I got some clarification from Gerard. He says he's using just a hydrogen alpha filter right now, it sounds like.
Oh, right, okay, that's interesting.
Broadcast. Yeah, he sent me that.
This looks to me that it's very close to maximum eclipse. It also looks like a Cheshire Cat smile, doesn't it?
It is. People have been calling it all manner of things, a smiley face.
This most point on May 13th, but it's farther from us than usual. And because of that, you can see it's a very tiny moon that's intruding onto the sun's disk, and that if you drew a line, in this case, directly toward the right, so that the moon would be central over the sun, it won't even come close to totally blocking it. There indeed will be quite a thick that's the nature of the eclipse we're seeing today.
Bob, I've got another question that's going to come up to you, but I just wanted to show this on the screen share because one of the things that's really cool to do in the app is to book multiple moon missions. We were just talking about the moon, and the next question is about the moon as well. And what we do here, if you just book to a moon mission every few days or something, with each new image, you can start following the lunar phases. So what I'm screen sharing here is a 2-day-old moon, and then a few days later you can see the phase getting larger and larger. And this is a particularly cool sequence because this whole lunar cycle finishes, just coming up here, I'll get to it in a second, on the 25th when we watch the partial lunar eclipse here on the Slough, which was really cool. But that's a really great way of using the app, and the planets are other things as well that show quite a lot of difference and change. Pat, somebody was asking about the types of telescopes and filters and cameras that we use for the Slough space camera. So this is the equipment at the Slough Observatory in the Canary Islands. It's a world-class observatory site. There's about 8,000 feet on top of a volcano in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. We've got a variety of telescopes there, ranging in size from small wide-field ones, 65mm, through to a half-meter Goliath. That's going to be back online very soon, we hope. We have attached to that very specialist CCD cameras. These things we have to take very long exposures of things like galaxies and nebulae, stuff like that. So the telescopes that we use, I'm just going to pull in here a couple of images in the app actually to show you the kind of images that we get from those telescopes. Galaxies and nebulae are really, really faint objects. So one, you need very big telescopes to grab it, but you need very long exposures. So here I'm just showing an image of what's called the Black Eye Galaxy, and this uses one of these ultra-cooled CCD cameras. They're cooled to about minus 40 degrees centigrade, below whatever the ambient temperature is, and that keeps the noise down in the images. And they use a variety of filters. They have what are called luminance filters, red, green, and blue, some hydrogen alpha filters as well. So that's the kind of equipment that we've got in the Canary Islands Observatory, which
Moon falsely can look white against the dark background. But here's my favorite stat about that. And Paul, you're going to love this. I may have mentioned this a few years ago. But take the fact that the moon is actually 450,000 times less bright than the sun. Okay? That's the first fact. And then take the fact that a very black object, let's say a black cat, is about 2,000 times darker, less reflective, blacker than white typing paper, okay, or printer paper, all right? Here's the two stats. A black cat is 2,000 times less reflective or blacker than white, shiny printer paper. The moon is 450,000 times less bright than the sun. Put those facts together, and you come up with an astonishing realization that a black cat seen in sunlight is actually 2,000 times, I said 2,000, it's actually, take that back, black cat is 200 times darker than typing paper. Okay, now we're ready for the punchline. A black cat in sunlight is 2,000 times brighter than white typing paper seen by the light of the moon when it's full. Now, white printer paper by the light of the full moon looks quite white, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If you go out on a moonlit night with some printer paper, that white paper will look white. And when you see a black cat in sunlight, that black cat looks black. But if you could see them side by side, if you could somehow see the black cat lit by sunlight next to printer paper lit by moonlight, full moonlight, you would then find that the black cat was no longer black, nor was it merely white. It would be so dazzlingly white that you couldn't even look at it. It would cast shadows from objects all around it. It would make objects cast shadows. And that black cat would now appear 2,000 times whiter than the white typing paper. So the black cat is not actually black. It only looks so in comparison to
Is this a trick question, Bob? Are you? This is I think you lost me in the black cat. Very beautiful.
It's been very popular in chat, Bob. People have absolutely loved that description. So, by the way, there is a sunspot visible at the moment, Pat, in the current image.
Okay.
If you just look about 1 or 2 o'clock on the area of the sun, we can see. And there's a lovely, lovely sunspot, which is just rotating out of view now. The sun, with the sun's rotation. Us.
So I'm going to be inviting in Gerard shortly here into our little hangout panel. He's going to give us an update on what's going on in his neck of the woods out there in the Northwest Territory, Australia. We want to really also thank Matt Tree from Serious Optics there. I believe is also in Queensland, and for helping us out with this. And you know, we had up to 5 feeds today on this event, and anyone who knows astronomy, anyone who has a telescope and tries to go out, knows how weather plays a major role in these doing something with astronomy. And certainly on a live event like this, it takes place at a specific time. You know, this is why we do come up with 5 feeds. It's so easy for a feed to get knocked out, whether from a technical issue or from the weather. So
I think it's that most of the feeds, Pat, on this one, I think have probably been affected by crocodiles.
Exactly. Yes.
I haven't actually been able to reach our guy in Tennant Creek at all, which is a little bit concerning.